early. Well, thank you very much, Tony. That was a great warm-up and a nice scene setting for us. Spoiled my fun a little bit because I was going to say some of those points, but I think the point is there. We're growing at speed. My name, as Tony said, is Scott Guthrie. I lead the influencer marketing trade body. Our members worked with MadFest to curate the creator stage today and tomorrow. I'm delighted to be joined by Leah, by Oliver, and by Jill. Leah is a behaviour scientist. Oliver works at a talent agency, and Jill represents an influencer marketing agency. We're going to dive straight into the first question because I know we're very short of time. Question one, tremendous growth in our industry. As Tony said, it was in 2023, the size of the market was 21.1 billion, 24 billion. Some analysts forecast the size of the market to be 200 billion by 2032. Tremendous growth. How has our industry changed or matured over the last 36 months? And I'm going to open up with Leah. Sadly, you're in the driving seat for this question, but
it's all good.
But how have we matured as an industry in the last 36 months or so?
I mean, obviously, we've experienced changes of formats, we've experienced changes in content consumption habits, we've experienced a lot of different psychological factors that affected the way we interact with people, with society, with brands. Obviously, we always talk about that, we need to talk more about it. It's not a funnel anymore, it's a loop. You've got a community at the center, you've got relevant reach across that you need to develop and create, and you've got awareness and consideration that happen at the same time. Essentially, people get to learn about you, your brand, and who you are through other people, and that resonates a lot. So essentially, the changes of formats and the way we interact with each other has completely changed, and that's why we've seen a rise in wanting to interact with authentic people, authentic brands, and basically a bit more of a trusted ecosystem because of the rise of misinformation. So obviously the creator economy has become a true creator economy. We don't interview 3, 4, 5, 6 creators here and there like we used to do in 2020. It's a whole new part of that loop. So that's how I've seen it evolve. That's how it's evolved over the past
Thank you. One of those words you use, Leah, authenticity. I've got a feeling that's going to be the golden thread that weaves its way throughout this panel and throughout the next couple of days. Yeah. Authenticity was an important finding by the Snapchat report earlier this year. If you haven't read that, that's a good thing to try and find. The Snapchat and Magna report. They said, and the top 3 ways that a creator can earn trust within the industry is sharing mistakes and lessons learned, showing evidence and facts, and portraying a realistic life. So it's that authentic, credible self. Jill, same question to you. How have we matured in the last 36 months?
Yeah, I don't think we can probably underestimate how much it has grown. You know, post-pandemic, it's one of the only industries that has really doubled in size, I think, since 2019. I think one of the big things that we have seen from a sort of agency perspective is how sophisticated it's getting. So whether that's regulation, thanks to Scott and the likes of the trade body, but also just the level of creativity that it now has. You know, we're seeing it move from a bolt-on at the end of campaigns to actually now being seen as a discipline. I think that's the really exciting thing for me, of actually seeing it now as an actual proper marketing discipline. And as you said, the stats speak for themselves. You know, the consumer behaviour, we now know that it does impact it, and that's the really, really exciting part for us.
Thank you. I'll pick you up on a small one. You said that we're double in size since 2019. By the end of this year, 2024, it should be 3.5 times the size it was in 2019.
It changes every day.
When it grows, it's growing at such a lip. And the importance of the trade body, and for declaration purposes, I must say that I'm delighted that Smarts and Creator and Connect Management are members of our trade body. We don't enforce the regulation, but we are a united voice working with the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK to promote responsible influencer marketing. And with that sort of up and aside, over to you, Oliver. Same question. How have we matured in the last 3 years?
Yeah, great question, Scott. When Connect Management was started 4 years ago, I mean, the biggest challenge we had every day was convincing brands to spend money on influencer marketing. TikTok, Instagram, Meta, YouTube, Snapchat, all these platforms they were well known, but marketers, there wasn't trust. Marketers were still spending above the line TV, billboards. Nowadays, we have brands that are moving entire amounts of their pots of budget 80 to 90% away from traditional methods and now onto influencer marketing. The industry is growing, the landscape is getting bigger and bigger, and from Connect Management, what we're seeing is brands now want to work with influencers versus traditional A-list talent. That's slowly coming down and down and down, and influencer rising up, up and up. And a telltale sign that we see every day, we work very closely with Disney, with Sony. They send influencers to red carpet premieres versus traditional TV talent. And it's, in my opinion, it's where the industry is heading. Influencer is on the rise, and it's something that a lot of brands and agencies should be focusing their attention over the next 3 to 5 years.
Thanks, Oliver. We've gone through question one and quite a lick. Let's move on to question two. Influencer marketing plays a pivotal role in shaping consumer behaviour. And we know that from recent stats, 83% of consumers say they trust influencers. So we over-index in the way influencers shape consumer behaviour. But that consumer trust is earned, it's not owned, it's not our right. We have to keep on maintaining it. So how can we maintain and even deepen that level of trust that we enjoy with that influencers and influencer marketing as an ecosystem enjoys with the consumers? Oliver, we'll turn that over to you this time.
If I had £1 for every time someone said authenticity, I'd be a very rich man.
Same.
Authenticity is key. You're going to hear it a lot over the next couple of days. As a talent agency, where we come from and with influencers from the last 4 years to today, they've grown over the last couple of years and they've built that authenticity, that following, that trust. That can disappear like that if they if they're not relevant anymore, or something happens which means their audiences no longer follow or trust their recommendation. So what's really key is they stay ahead of the curve, they follow trends, they work with brands that align with their values. As an agency, we have monthly meetings with our creators. What strategy are you focusing on? What direction is your content heading in? We want to know, as an agency, what are the dream brands that they want to work with? Who do they align with? And if there are brands that they don't align with, that's okay. Don't work with them. You don't want to ruin your credibility. Really amazing 2 examples. One of our creators, Luke Vernon, TikTok superstar. Luke's vegan, and his dream brand to work with was Beyond Meat. And we did an amazing collab the last couple of months where they sent Luke out to the streets of London, interviewing people, testing vegan-based food and real-life meat. And another really good example, we work closely with Volkswagen. Sam Ryder, the Eurovision superstar, is on our roster. Amazing guy, beautiful long blonde hair. He is a sustainability advocate, and everything he does is for the environment. So we partnered with Volkswagen, the all-electric ID Bus Cargo, in a really authentic way for Eurovision, and it's a really good example of matching a creator's value with brand messaging and bringing it together to have a really authentic piece of content.
Thanks, Oliver. You're right, the word authenticity keeps on weaving its way through, and the importance of aligning a brand values with the creative values, and the other way around as well. It's not just for brands to be doing the choosing. You'll know better than me, Oliver, with your roster. It's the creators who choose the brands that they want to work with, and your example of Luke being a vegan is a great example of that. I wrote a chapter for a very worthy, slightly dull textbook on influencer marketing, an academic read, and the word authenticity came up 202 times throughout the book. But more recently, I think last month, IZEA published a report, Trust in Influencer Marketing, the first time they've done something in the UK. And consumers listed authenticity, transparency and engagement as the 3 key factors that they look for when deciding whether to trust an influencer. So Leah, over to you. Same question to you. How do we keep on maintaining and maybe earning greater trust with the consumers in terms of influencers?
Yeah, I mean, Oliver's sentence, honestly, like that's what everyone says, right? Everyone talks about authenticity. Everyone wants to know what authenticity is as well. What's authenticity? You know, from a consumer psychology point of view, how do you define authenticity? That's really important. That's why you have to listen to your consumers. And I know from a behavioral science point of view, that's what we love. You know, you need to really map your consumers, map your community, understand where they are, what makes them tick, what makes them happy, to actually define what's authentic for them. Because authenticity can be quite different for your different communities. So that's really important for me in terms of really understanding your consumers. I think when we talk about trust, I said it in the first answer, there's a lot of misinformation out there right now. A lot of formats actually arrive and created that sort of dynamic where people and your consumers don't know if they can trust a certain entity, a certain video, for instance. There's a lot out there. There's sometimes too much to watch. So again, it's about recreating that trust, reshaping that trust, understanding how you can mirror their personality via creators, because they exist to humanize your brand presence. So again, that it's a loop. You have to find the right ambassadors. You know, Oliver, you spoke about that. Really mirror them and listen to your consumers. Listen to the narrative that they want to be part of. Be very dynamic. You've got new measurements in place, and it's going to keep growing within the creator economy to be able to tap into that, to then define what authenticity is for your consumer, and then use those creators and work with them really closely to be able to tap into those subcultural shifts. So for me, it's about really tackling misinformation, first and foremost. Second is doing a lot of audience research, community mapping, to understand what do they actually define as authentic, and then working closely and in real time with the up-and-coming tools to be able to tap into that new creator economy.
Love that. That's very good and very, very nice.
I love 3 points. I love them.
Jill, same question to you. How do we keep on that? And I know that you have a PR background. Maybe there, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe there are some traits from the sort of a media relations and a reputation and a trust building exercise. But how do we, in influencer marketing, keep on earning consumer trust?
I think one of the key words that you said was earned. You know, we've all kind of, from a talent agency, from a consumer behaviour, from a talent or an influencer agency, we've all worked on building that trust, and it hasn't something that's came overnight. And I think if we think back to 5 years ago, our industry was often seen as sort of untrustworthy, and it's at a massive change to get to where it is. I think one huge part is now that influencers are more savvy themselves. So as Oliver said, you know, they're being more picky about the brands they work with. They want to align with them. They want their audience to align with them. But I think that also is onus on the agencies working on it as well. You know, often probably influencer marketing was seen as, you know, copy and pasting a brief or, you know, a caption and use these keywords. But actually this whole idea of co-creation and involving them right from the very beginning is kind of where I see trust being built. So we love to kind of involve our creators and influencers right from the very beginning of when we get the brief from the client themselves, rather than kind of giving them a really polished briefing book. We actually ask them what they think would work. And I think actually seeing them as that creative consultant rather than just a paid ad space that we're paying for a space, to me that's where the trust is built. And consumers now are savvy enough to see that on the other side. You know, they can see through that sort of hashtag ad, the grip and grin of them holding products and, you know, asking to be reviewed. So I think what I really love is kind of that idea of like people sharing, you know, good and bad. They're sharing honest opinions. You know, not everything's perfect. Not everything's on brand messages. As much as we hear from a PR side, there might not be perfect, but actually that's what works.
Yeah, so sometimes if authenticity trumps perfection, possibly, in terms of delivery.
As much as we hate that from a marketeer's point of view.
Sure. But maybe, yes, maybe a rougher, yes. So passion, let's say passion trumps perfection. Let's go with that one. Question 3, so we're racing through this, so we can slow down, we have the luxury of slowing down a little bit for question 3. So we've done, how do we get here? We've done, you know, how do we continue to build trust with the consumer? Let's look over the brow of the hill to the next 36, 60 months or so and find, you know, how is the industry going to evolve? What are we going to see next? And suddenly, again, you've finished the last question, and I'm going to turn to you, Jill, to open up this question? How are we going to evolve?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned co-creation already. I think that idea of working with an influencer as a collaborator is really exciting. I think that's definitely where agencies and also talent agencies are moving. You know, no longer is it just kind of matchmaking an influencer with a brief and kind of letting them loose. It's actually, you know, inviting them into the brand space, bringing them on a tour, whatever. So I think that's one thing I see in the future of staying. I think the other thing is kind of what we've been chatting about this morning, no longer kind of seeing influencers just as social ad spaces. You know, we work in an integrated agency, and actually most of our briefs now come through as that integrated 360 campaign. And actually seeing influencers show up on out of home, seeing them in internal marketing, seeing them as speakers, you know. And I think that's probably where they're sort of people of influence. They're moving away from just social media bloggers and actually being seen as people of influence. And we're sort of seeing that trend of less celebrities, and I think there's probably still a place for celebrities, you know, and that's top tier talent, but actually we're seeing those sort of smaller nano creators kind of win over audiences, and kind of their engaged audiences are what is appealing to clients and brands. So yes, I think probably integrated would be my guess on seeing influencers now more as a discipline and being brought in right at the very beginning of brainstorms and agency briefs, rather than kind of saying at the very end, oh, we forgot about influencers, let's bolt on an influencer campaign. So yeah, I think that's probably where I see it going.
That report that I referenced earlier about from IZEA, published last month, Trust in Influencer Marketing, that said one of the pull-out stats was, or insights was, consumers trust creators far more than they trust celebrities. And I think that we'll see that increasingly, and the way that brands work with creators and work with celebrities will shift. That probably goes back to that word that keeps on permeating the authenticity. But in terms of integrated campaigns, we're seeing that influencer marketing shifting rapidly from the peripheries, from being sort of a silo activity right to the beating heart of multi-channel integrated campaigns. Whaler, a global influencer marketing agency, did some work 2 or 3 years ago into the priming effect that creators have. Starts off with the creator maybe on TikTok or Instagram, then you're more prone to see that an ad on, if you see an ad on YouTube, you're more prone to believe and have a positive affinity with that creator. Again, if you see it out of home, again that affinity builds, and on television. So rather than it being, thought of it as a standalone, coming to the centre of it, and that priming effect on other channels.
And just on that, Scott, one of the things we're kind of seeing is actually clients asking us no longer are they only interested in the influencers channel. They're seeing them as nearly like content creators. So one of our clients only uses influencers to kind of power their social engine. They don't really care about the influencer posting on their channel. So it's even seeing them in that way of like, they're nearly replacing photographers, videographers, creators in that sense, that now the appeal is if people see influencer style of content or influencers appearing in content, it is more naturally engaging to the consumer when they're scrolling.
Thank you, Jill. I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing everybody, so
I'll shout louder.
There's music.
Forgive if I'm not diving in my usual voracious response. But thank you very much, Jill. Oliver, same question to you. Future gazing over the brow of the hill.
Yeah.
Next 3 to 5 years, what are we going to see?
A lot of things. Our experience and insights is it's all going to be about brand-led long form. Brand-led long form is where the industry's going. Hands up, who's seen Sidemen Inside, Foot Asylum Locked In recently? Okay, couple of hands. 5. What we're seeing is brands traditionally could pay to be between shows, and now brands can own the entire show. You look at Foot Asylum, you look at the Sidemen, what they've done is absolutely unbelievable, and they've taken a long-form content that has a track record and history of working in TV, and now they've translated it and brought it into the social landscape. So what that means is these brands can be culturally relevant the entire time. They're constantly branding, and most importantly, they're able to work with influencers and creators that meet the audience that they market or sell their product and service to. The other thing to also remember is if you combine the views from Sidemen Inside and Foot Asylum Locked In, 99% out of 99%, it is absolutely outweighing views of live sport events. You're looking at music events, and most importantly, final of Love Island, for example. So these shows are doing way better with views. Brands are spending money advertising within the show, and what we're seeing now is more and more brands are talking to us and our creators. How can we get them into the next long-form content? How can we do better than what Sidemen have done? That's where the conversation is heading, and for the next 2 to 3 years, that's where we're going to be focusing, is building the next Sidemen Inside, building the next Foot Asylum Locked In.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And where we're seeing sort of colossal creators, the Sidemen, and of course Mr. Beast commanding more audience and more views than a top 10 global Netflix show, and now working with Amazon to produce a version of Squid Games. We're seeing that sort of blurring, and as we see at the top of the mid-tier, surely we're going to see a lot more mid-tier and then lower ranking, but sort of smaller community-sized creators working on those long-form brand partnerships. Leah, same question to you.
Thank you, Scott. So essentially, you mentioned it, obviously, Jill, you spoke about the integrated ecosystem. And you talked about the priming effect. Those two are really important to consider moving forward when we speak about the creator economy, because we're going to see, and we call that the mere exposure effect, we're going to see more and more creators being integrated across, different channels, different touch points, different types of content, long form content, continuing those stories. So within the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to see that kind of rise of creators speaking at different panels, talking directly to consumers, and obviously a lot of brands are going to find an integrated way, an integrated approach to actually push that and drive that. Now, I want to talk about virtual influencers because a lot of people just came up to us recently and come to me and asked me about virtual influencers because of the rise of AI, and that's a question that everyone has, and there's a debate between virtual and human influencers of whether or not they're going to actually replace influencers in any shape or form. The purpose of influencers is to actually humanize your brand, bring that lifestyle journey, that behind the scenes, that interactive aspect to it. So in a way, and from a psychological standpoint, it's never going to really replace influencers or the purpose of influencers. But what I'm going to say, though, is virtual influencers have a great impact in aggregating social norms, aggregating functional attributes, putting on makeup, for example. And you could also obviously find a way to actually reduce wastage in investments when you do that. So virtual influencers are going to have their own functional role within the next couple of years, but we're going to see the rise of creators with an integrated funnel first and foremost. And actually, I'm going to end by saying that I think there's a lot of talk about, hey, you use celebrities, you use macro-influencers, you use that, and you talked about, one paid post and that's it. The influencers, as we know it, are completely disappearing because it's a loop. We consume information differently, we search differently, we interact differently. So we're going to see creators at the center of it in order to get that relevant reach. So again, that mere exposure effect is going to keep coming through with the rise of micro creators specifically. Not robots, don't worry, or any generative AI.
Just coming back to you quickly on the virtual influencers, I think brands love them because
they do.
They'll always turn up on time. They'll always be immaculately dressed.
Exactly.
That's your job.
They're not as irrational as exactly you won't have a lot of fallback management on your hands or crisis management. But again, at the end of the day, we need to go back to what I talked about when I said we need to define authenticity. It's great to talk about authenticity, but what does it mean for your consumer? That's the same thing. We're talking about virtual influencers, but what does it mean? What are they achieving for you, and how can you use them? So you could use them to aggregate functional signals, but never to give you a behind-the-scenes around, I don't know, what they eat for lunch, because that's never going to happen. And that's the purpose of human influencers, to humanize your brand.
I think that brands always also like them because they think that it limits or reduces or eliminates brand safety concerns.
Exactly.
But I think that there are issues around that as well. We saw just before Christmas, there's a Spanish company created 3 influencers one of them, Eliana, does that ring a bell? I might have got the name slightly wrong. She's young, like a PT instructor, and she likes to run along the beach. But she also has an OnlyFans account where she's not wearing gym clothes as well. So again, you still have to do that digital due diligence into it. And also Sony has fallen foul. There was a black virtual influencer last year that was created by white people and using the N slur. Levi last year working with virtual influencers. In a bid, they said to bring greater DEI into the space. Well, the charge was, why not work with human DEI creators? Well, on that bum note, I'll bring us down a little bit. For my 2 pennies worth, I think that the industry can continue to grow at speed as long as we keep on building in that trust and respect we have for the consumer, for creators, for agencies, for brands, for platforms, and the whole ecosystem. Without each other, we don't have an industry. So I think we have to focus on responsible influencer marketing and self-regulation. The influencer marketing trade body, as I said, works very closely with the Committee of Advertising Practice in the UK, and we're working with government on a new iteration of a code of conduct. So I think we have to look after ourselves and to enjoy a big profitable future. We have to really push and remind ourselves about leading with responsible influencer marketing. And I think the other thing is when more money is coming into our sector, that is great news. For having effective ways to measure return on investment accurately and across channels as well. Those are going to be 2 very important things on that. So now I think we'll wrap up on that unless anyone else would like any closing words. Leah, you always look like you're good for a closing word.
Yeah, because I started and I'm ending now. I mean, the only thing I'm going to say is, again, we're all experiencing growth in the sector. You come from an influencer and creator, agency. You come from a talent management agency. I come from a behavioral consultancy, and we're on stage together because, as you say, there's a lot of investment that's going through within the sector. So it's all about us coming together, putting our brains together, and finding the best ways to create the best impact within the sector. So, exciting time ahead.
Beautifully said, Leah. Listen, I think we'll end there. Jill Boobyer, Oliver Siegel, Leah Karam.
Yes, Karam.
Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
And I think I'm right in saying we'll all be around for the next hour or so. So if anyone has any questions, we'll be around at the back. But thank you very much.
Thank you.